Going to teach you guys how to start this project that we'll be doing. Here you see my sample. It is a name tag project where we will be using pictures to kind of create the imagery and cut it out to be pictures of our name, and then we will add different effects and things to kind of dress up the project. So first thing we want to do is we would like to create a new document. So I'm going to go to File, New. The size of this document is going to be 1,500 pixels wide, height of 1,000 pixels. Resolution we want to set to 72. What that's going to do for us is this is set up for the internet right now. 72 dots per inch is a pretty standard pixels per inch ratio for things going on the internet. If we were printing this out, we'd want to bump up that number to something larger, but for right now 72 is fine for us. For background contents, for right now we'll leave that white. That's going to provide us with an extra layer later that we may or may not use, but that'll kind of get us started. So as far as the name of this document goes, you can be creative here, more creative than me if you'd like, but I'm just going to go with something along the lines of layer mask name tag. So that'll kind of get me what I want. So I'm going to go ahead, this is all set up now. So again, it was 1,500 pixels. 1,000 pixels high, 72 for the resolution, background content's white. So I'm going to go ahead and hit OK. Alright, so here's our document. This is where we're working on this project. What we want to do to start is we're going to select our text tool. We are going to change the font to 72. And I'm just going to start typing out. Now I can decide what I want this to say. You could do your first name for this, your last name. That part's kind of up to you. You can use a nickname. I would say minimum. Let's try to go with at least 4 characters. It can be more than that, but no less than 4. So I'm going to go ahead and type out. I want this to say arena. I'm going to just do it in all capitals. Again, that part's kind of up to you. Now, what I already did before, and what you guys can do now, is you want to pick a font that will have a fairly bold, thick, wide line, so that you're going to be able to see the pictures that we put in here. You wouldn't necessarily want to pick something that would be like a real skinny font. For example, let's see. This wouldn't be so great. Well, now you can see this is going to pop up on some of you guys too with the computers. If that happens, just kind of do it again and it'll come up. So I'm going to go ahead and do the text. I'm going to type out again arena, arena. And then I'm going to highlight this and pick a different one. Now this may crash again, it may work this time. It's just kind of this version of Photoshop we have with these newer computers doesn't always kind of play so nice. So anyway, this font would be kind of thin for that. So I'm looking for something more bold. So what I did, I picked Impact, but if you go through the list, you can really pick anything that you like, as long as it's something kind of wide like that. Now as far as the size goes, you don't have to go too nuts using this bar at the top to pick the size, because we're going to change that in a moment. If you like a particular font, you can also look to see. Now some fonts will have this, some won't. This particular font only has regular. I can't click the drop down menu here. But if it had bold as an option, that would be a way I could kind of make this one a little thicker as well. The only other thing to be aware of, if your font's not showing up, make sure that the color is not set to white. So this is where I was picking the color. So now it's white, so it looks like it's not there, but you can see I kind of had blank spots as I was typing. If that's the case, just change the color. It doesn't matter exactly what it is, because we're not actually going to see this later. This is going to kind of all disappear later. We're only going to use that to make selection. So again, here's where I was changing the font. You're only going to see that if you're on the text tool. This is where you can change the size. So again, I just picked 72 just so it was big enough so I could see it as I'm working. And again, I just picked any color font other than white so that I could just see it against this white background. Next thing that I want to do is I want to kind of change the size of this. Now if you look at the finished one here, you can see the font almost goes side to side horizontally, and vertically I'd say it's taking up about 1/3 of the screen. We want to leave a little room at the top so we can kind of see our background and these different effects that you're seeing here. There's like a motion blur that will come in later, and then there's a reflection down the bottom. The goal is to kind of make this thing look like we're seeing a reflection off of like a smooth surface, whether it's glass or water or whatever it ends up being, ice. We want to leave space for that. So again, width-wise, we're going to make our project almost the full width of the screen. Height-wise, about 1/3. So to do that, what I'm going to do is I switched over to my Move tool. I am going to have this arena, or whatever yours says, selected, this text layer, and I'm going to press Command T. that brings up the transform controls. Now, I'm going to hit escape for a second to get out of that. If I had show transform controls already selected, I could see this already. I don't really like show transform controls because I can accidentally grab some different spots when I don't want to change the size of something or rotate something, and it can kind of get things messed up. So I'm going to turn off show transform controls, and I'm just going to do Command T. Again, it brings up this window, and now I can stretch this out. This is one time you really don't need to hold Shift. Normally we hold Shift to keep things in proportion, but text can get stretched out in different dimensions because different fonts are different heights and different widths, so it won't kind of look out of place. It's not like when you change the size of a person where you kind of want to keep their head a specific proportion so they don't look like a pancake or an egghead. So that's about the size I want to get. I'm roughly a third of the height of the whole document here, and width-wise I am just about from side to side. So if I zoom out a little bit, it's easier to see that. So I'm just going to let that rest here, and what I'm ready to do now is I'm ready to bring the pictures into this document. So what you're going to need is for each character, you're going to need at least one picture. The reason you might want more than one is because once you put a picture into this, you might not like how it looks. Maybe too much of it's getting cut off and it's kind of hard to tell what's what. So my recommendation would be, as you get the pictures, kind of bring them in, try them on a letter. If you don't like that letter, try a different letter. If it ends up that picture just doesn't fit, then kind of grab a different picture. So as far as what you're going to put in these, you have a lot of options. You could use personal things from like your social media accounts in different places, your cell phone. However you can get personal pictures. You'll see in a moment I have one of my daughter, one of my wife and I, one of me fishing, things like that can be on here. However, you can also get generic pictures from the internet as well. So you could go on Google Images. I have a picture of the Pittsburgh Penguins logo. I have a picture of like a woodworking image that I found on the internet. So you can use those type as well. So here is what I want to do. I want to get these pictures onto this project now. So what I'm going to do is I have these pictures already saved for myself on the desktop. This is where you could pause the video and go find your pictures. And what I want to do though is I would like to take these pictures and just drag them right into my project. Now once I drag one in, it has this X over top. I have to press enter to actually place it in my document, so I just did that. I hit return. Then what I'm going to do is I see this little symbol next to my picture. What that's saying is that this picture isn't actually on the project. Instead, it's just linked from my desktop to this file. So the downside of this would be if I were to delete this file off my computer, the next time I go to open this Photoshop project, this picture is not going to be here anymore. So what I want to do is I want to take this picture, instead of it just being linked to this file that's on my desktop, I want to actually place the pictures on my project. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to right click over here. I can't right click on the picture. I'm going to get a different menu. I have to be right here in my layers. I'm going to right click and go to rasterized layer. That's actually going to put the pixels right onto this project. So now I'm going to repeat that process with my other picture. So I'm going to press enter, right click, and rasterize it so it's actually part of my project. And again, I'm just going to do that with these other guys. Rasterize. And I need two more. And again, you may need more or less depending on what you decide to do for this project. Oops. So see, I clicked in the wrong spot here. I clicked on the picture. It brought up this menu. Now I don't have rasterize as a choice. So on this menu, I have rasterize layer as a choice. So I need this last one here. Again, I'm going to place it. I am going to rasterize it. So I'm all set now. I have all my pictures here. So as far as actually putting each picture on a letter, here's what I'm ready to do. I'm going to turn off the pictures for a moment so that I can see the original text layer. I select that layer. I'm going to use my magic wand tool. The magic wand is going to be the only tool that works for this, or the best tool that works for this. The magic wand only sees what is in the layer that you have selected. So, for example, if I had this layer on with the picture of my daughter and I have that layer selected, if I go to click on the A, watch what happens. It selects this whole portion of the screen. The reason for that, again, the computer can only see what is in that particular layer. So really, because I have that layer selected, this is all the computer sees. It was not able to see the text because that's in a different layer. It can only see this picture and then these empty sides. So it selected the empty side when I use the magic wand. So again, what I'm going to do, I'm going to turn on that layer now. I'm going to turn off that picture. I'm going to go to the layer of my text. I'm going to get rid of my old selection. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to click on the A. So now I have the A selected. Now if your font has more than one part to a letter, let's say, some fonts are like that where the A might be 2 or 3 pieces. If I go with the way that most of your computers are set up right now, if you look at the top, you probably have this option selected right now for a new selection every time I click. Well, let's say I needed the A and the R selected. When I go to click the next one, it kind of gets rid of my initial selection. So if you need to add to your selection, it's this option right here. As I hold my mouse here, you can kind of see it says add to selection. I'm not pressing any keyboard or mouse buttons right now. If I just kind of hover over these things, it will show you what they do. So I'm going to add to my selection, and now I'd be able to pick like the A and the R if that's what I needed, or in this case, if it was the A was 2 or 3 pieces, I could click each of those pieces. If I kind of mess up and I wanted to start fresh, I could just go to select, deselect. So anyway, I select the letter A. Next thing that I want to do is turn on the picture that I want to have show up where this A is. The way I'm going to do this now is, so I was on the text layer to make my selection. Now I will go to the picture and I create a mask. The picture disappeared. That's okay, because remember what a mask is doing is it's almost like I am creating a wall. And think of this little A that just showed up as like a window in the wall. So if this picture was where the window is, this white portion, we'd be able to see it. If it's where the black is, where the wall is, behind that wall, we can't see it. So zooming back out here, if I were to use my move tool, and I don't want to move the mask, I want to move the picture itself, so I'm going to select that. If I go to move this, I'm going to have a little bit of an issue right now. If I move this, let's say to the right and down, if you notice, the A moved as well. The mask moved as I moved the picture. So I don't want that. That's what this link is going to do for us. So let me undo that. Now what I want to do is I want to unlink this mask from the picture. So now I can move the picture independently of the mask. I can move the mask without moving the picture. Really what we want to do is just move the picture. I don't want to affect that mask, so I'm going to click here because I want to move this picture. And now as I use my move tool, even though I can't see it, if I start holding down my mouse button, I can kind of see a faint outline, a faint gray outline of where this picture is. And now I can place that wherever I want. I could also do Command T, and if I want to shrink or change this picture in any way, I could do that. And like I said, maybe I end up deciding this picture doesn't look good on the letter A. Maybe I want to use it on the R or something. That's a decision you can kind of make as you're going. If I decided to do that, I would just simply delete this layer mask and start over. So the way I would start over is I'd go back to here, use the magic wand, make my selection of a different letter, and just kind of repeat that process. So what I'm going to do though is I'm going to go ahead and undo that so that that one is selected. Now I'm going to just repeat this process for the rest of my letters. So again, if I was doing this for real, I would probably spend a little more time as far as which picture was going in which letter, but for now I'm just going to throw each one in one. So again, I made a selection. I'm on my text layer. I made a selection with my magic wand. I'm going to go to the next one that I want here. Sure, this one's fine. I'm going to select that layer, create the mask, unlink it, select the picture layer, and now because I unlinked it, I had the selection when I created the mask. That's all set up. Now I can do Command T and shrink this thing down. I'm going to hold Shift while I do that. That will allow me to keep the proportion of this penguin's logo straight. That way I don't accidentally stretch that out into an oval or anything. Alright, continuing down the line here, just going to kind of keep going. So I'm going to go to the text again, make a selection with my magic wand of the E, go to the layer that I want to have this on, click the mask, again unlink, go to the layer, and now I can move this thing. Now I also need to scale it, so I'm going to do Command T. I'm going to hold Shift while I'm dragging this, and then once I like the size of that, press Enter. There we go. So that one's set. I'm going to again repeat that process now for the end. So I'm going to select Magic Wand. I'm on my text layer. Do the end. Do the woodworking supplies this time. I'm on that layer. I'll create the mask. I'll unlink it. I'll go to the layer itself, not the mask. Can move this. Now in this case, I need to make this a little bigger because I don't want any of that black showing. So what I'm going to do now, same deal, Command T. stretch that out a little bit and place it wherever I want it to be. There we go. Alright, one last one to go. So again, I go back to this. Magic wand. Got it. I go here and I create the mask, unlink, go to the layer, and move it. And again, you would just repeat this process for however many layers you happen to have. And play around with your pictures. It may look good at first, but like as you move it around, you might realize, oh wait, you know what, this looks better if it was smaller, bigger, if I want to see more or less of this. And give some thought to like kind of what you put where. Like I intentionally put the picture of me and my wife at this A because it just kind of fits nicely in this letter, leaves some room for this like Ferris wheel at the top. So, you know, it just kind of really kind of makes it all work together. So I'm going to turn on the background just so you can kind of see it with and without the background. So my pictures are now in here. A couple more steps here for part one. What we will do now is we're going to create a group to put all these letters in, just so as we go further along, our layers are kind of organized. It's easy to look at this stuff. So I'm going to create a group. I'm going to hit this button here, this folder. I'm going to drag all of my layers right into this folder. The way I know they're in the folder is they're kind of indented to the right a little bit. I can also hit this little triangle, and that shows me that when I have the triangle facing this way that they kind of disappear because they're inside that folder. So if I have that shut and I put these in here, I can see that I'm getting these in here. And now if I expand it, I can see all of those are in here. Next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to duplicate this folder. I want to create like a backup of this folder. So I right-clicked on the folder itself and I went to Duplicate Group. I'm going to call this group Backup Letters. Alright, so I'm going to leave this backup letters alone. I'm going to turn that one off to protect it. I'm going to turn off the text. I'm going to turn off the background, anything else I have, so that the only thing that is visible right now is this other group of all my letters. What I want to do is I want to combine those to be one thing. So I'm going to do Layer Merge Visible. Now I can't click on that yet. The reason I can't, I need to be on something visible for me to do that. So I'm going to click on one of these layers in this group or on this folder. It doesn't really matter what, as long as I'm on something here. And again, I turned everything else off because what it's going to do is it's going to merge every single thing we see. So if I had these backup letters on and I merge this, I'm going to lose these. I'm only going to have just one layer with all these letters on there. Even though there's 2 copies of each layer, it's still just all going to disappear. So I turn off everything except for one of those folders, and now I'm ready to do Layer Merge Visible. This now is all one layer. If we look, we can kind of zoom in here and see it a little bit. It's all one layer. The folder went away. But the nice thing, I still have each letter as their own thing here. So if I decide later I wanted to change what the R looked like, you know, I could go in here, I could change it, I could remerge this as a copy. So, you know, I could create a copy of the folder, merge it. I'm back to this point where I have this individual folder. So at this point, that's kind of the end of this first little section of this. We got our letters on here. We now have a copy of this thing that's all one layer. And we have the backup letters still available here. So you should have 3 or 4 layers here. You would only have 3 if you didn't have this background layer, but most likely you have that.